Hey now, welcome everybody to the
How's it
British
going?
Electric Blues Show. It's my pleasure to
Oh shit, I don't
introduce
think I can
to
hear you.
you. Can you hear me?
What is going on?
It's okay. You might have to come back out and come back in, Cesar. Can you hear me? Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
I don't know if
Cesar,
you can
can
hear.
you hear me?
There you go. Now I can hear you.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Okay. All right. So let's get into the start part 2. Welcome everybody to this week's Friday edition of the British Electric Blues Show. It's my pleasure to have all the way from San Francisco Cesar here. I've been a long time fan of Cesar on his social media Instagram account, and during the course of this interview and hangout, we'll elaborate a little bit more on why I have a strong appreciation for what Cesar does. But more importantly, besides being a music fan, Cesar is a man who's put his money where his mouth is, and he has a band, and they perform a lot of the music that we love. And it's in that tradition that I want to welcome Cesar to the show. Happy to have you, brother.
How's it going, Andrew? Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So, Cesar, take us all the way back to the beginning. Tell us about how a young North American guy, or a guy stationed in North America, got into this weird, wonderful electric blues music. Why aren't you listening to rap?
Um, yeah, growing up, I listened to a lot of hip hop. I didn't know that any of this actually existed whatsoever. I didn't know there was Jimi Hendrix. I knew like the Beatles from like watching cartoons and them getting their skits, but I like didn't know anything about it. And in my teens, I started skateboarding, and all those skate videos had some of the best soundtracks.
Oh
So I
wow!
think, yeah, so I think when I was like maybe 14 or 13, I saw a video where somebody used 5 to 1 by the Doors, and I was like, whoa, like what is this? I've never heard music like this. And I slowly started getting more into it, and I just remember taking like my little iPod Nano, the ones that you shake, and like filling it up with like anything that I saw that was old, like Pink Floyd, like Jimi Hendrix, anything. I filled it up, and uh, as I grew older, I lost an interest in skateboarding, and I think basically I just fallen in love with music, and through that I started collecting records. But first off, before I collected the records, I was just like slowly starting to get to play. I had a little shitty acoustic guitar that my dad, I convinced my dad to get me from like Target or something, that I used for a very long time, and then um, I started collecting the records, and that's when I met my friend Jimmy.
Yep.
I'd known the Stones and everybody basically by then, the Kinks, all the UK stuff.
Yep.
But the blues really came when I was trying to figure out how to play guitar.
Oh
When
wow!
Yeah, when I was trying to figure out, okay, so how does Eric Clapton sound like this? Like that's one person that I still can't completely total figure out how he played with the furiosity he did. I'm figuring it had to be like Buddy Guy and Freddie King together, because those runs that he does live are just insane. But
Yep.
yeah, I basically was like, I want to play just like Eric Clapton, and like uh, I started picking up everything, and I got very heavily into San Francisco music. So like the Jefferson Airplane, the Grateful Dead, right?
Yeah.
And through
Wow.
that, through that, I learned that they all wanted to be the Butterfield Blues Band.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, so who plays guitar for the Butterfield Blues Band? Michael Bloomfield.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
You learned that like Michael was playing with like Sonny Boy Williamson and like Howlin' Wolf and like all those people way back in the day before like in like 61, 62, like
Yeah.
when they were young cats. So like that's basically how I caught up into everything. But I think I got into the British blues really was, getting through bands like The Who and like just watching the Isle of Wight performance over and over and over again every single night. Like, and then, yeah, when I started playing guitar, like that's when I really started to focus on the Blues Breakers. And, I found her Peter Green, and it was over from there. It was over. To this day,
Wow.
like I've gone through so much music, so many bands, like, it's almost overwhelming to try and listen to all the bands, but through all those bands, like I can still never find somebody that speaks to me the way Peter Green does.
Oh, can I just echo what you've just said? Peter Green for me is phenomenal. I'm a Clapton nut. I love Peter Green, and it was a sad year earlier, with the passing of
Mm-hmm.
Peter Green. And we did a tribute show here on the channel, Cesar, and I interviewed a British guy called Dave Simpson, who you may have come across, who's a Peter Green nut. And he's
Yes, yes,
offered some Peter Green lessons, and he's got a wonderful tone. And I'm a lot older than you, Caesar, and when I was a young guy, none of my friends were listening to this music, and so I take my hat off to you, and I mean that sincerely. To be a young guy in San Francisco, for my gosh, San Francisco. I live in the arse end of the world in New Zealand, brother, and San Francisco is like London, for a guy like me. You've just named some bands, and you walk down these roads, or you go to these parks, and you hang out where these bands not that long ago used to hang out, and it's almost kind of spooky, isn't it? It's like a religious experience for fans like us, isn't it?
it really is. It really is. It really is like going to church in a sense. Electric church music. That's what Hendrix used to call it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's just yeah. Look. So it's always, this is one of the great things about social media, Caesar, and that you can meet music lovers, musicians around the world. That's what I love about it. We try to focus on the positivity on our channel, and we talk about that. And we also talk about, Caesar, about the rights and responsibilities we have as musicians and music fans to transform social media.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, have an opinion, offer an opinion, but it's how you get your opinion across on social media. And like I was saying to you in the green room, before we went live, I really appreciate your channel because you turned me on to the blues explosion. That these Japanese cats who were producing music in the late 60s, early 70s, and it's just phenomenal. I can't believe it.
It's incredible. All over the world, every little nook has their insane band that could have easily competed with any of the bands that are huge that we know now.
Yeah. And I think I think that's the key. That's the key because I've had some friends go to North America, Caesar, and they've been pretty shit hot guitar players. One friend of mine who we've done a few shows on this channel together, he said when he went to Texas, he was pretty good, and he said, Andrew, there's a line. It goes around the block of all these young cats who can do Stevie Ray Vaughan licks. It's just huge, and there's a certain amount of luck to make it, because we all know these hot guitar players who just probably just haven't had the chance. So I suppose this is a good segue into us talking about your band, because again, I heard your band because you put clips on, and on your YouTube channel there's a couple of clips here of you guys playing live. Man, you guys, besides sounding good, you guys put a real show on. Wow.
We try our best. Sound guys don't like us, but we try our best.
So what? Tell me, indulge. So why don't the sound guys like you?
Well, in San Francisco, there's not live music, like loud music, I should say. Like, there's not much loud music. So when somebody walks in with like a full stack or a half stack, it's already like a shit show. Like, um, they have a really hard time, like they just have a really hard time respecting your music, and I get it. You have to like, follow conduct and law and stuff, but a lot of the times, like, it's not loud enough to like really harm anybody, and it's just a control trip, and like they don't really like that we're just like an in-your-face band that just comes on, plays, and then is done. There's no bullshit. Like, we don't need to do anything. We don't need the PA system. We could just show up, put our amps up
Wow.
there, play, and then leave. There's no. I don't use any pedals. Nobody uses any pedals. It's just clean. Yeah, like we could like get our stuff on stage in like less than a minute
So
and be ready.
so so again, I know a bit of history when it comes to blues. So you're doing exactly what Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac and the Blues Breakers did. They just turned up, man. They had no pedal boards. They just turned up, put their amps on a chair, plugged it in, and if you have a look at a lot of those photographs, Cesar, the cats in the audience, they're not bloody far from the amps at all. They're quite close, even when Cream were playing at the height of their success. So, they're right there, and those amps would have been turned up. That would have been a loud experience.
Well, it's just like how Hendrix used to say, music is meant to flow like through the body. Like, you're supposed to feel the sound waves. Like, a lot of people aren't really used to hearing those loud pitches and stuff like that because it's all very spacey, clean,
Yeah,
quiet music. But yeah, you hear the story about like how Mike Vernon couldn't work with Eric Clapton because his amp was too loud, and then
yeah.
what happens? The Blues Breaker, not only does it influence a whole generation of guitar players, but like it's mainly responsible for why Les Pauls are also as expensive as they are now.
Yes. Yeah. So, how often do does your band rehearse? Do you guys have a rehearsal space set up where you can, crank it? Is that something that you guys particularly enjoy doing on a regular basis?
As of lately, not we don't rehearse so much. We have a space in our friend's house that lives in town, and yeah, we just rehearse there. But our bass player lives about an hour away, so it's tough to like get scheduling together. But he's got his own little project right now since we're in quarantine.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of tough to get together. But before, yeah, we would just like get out of work at like 10 o'clock, go to the studio when we had a studio, and then we would rehearse from like 11 to 2, and we would just play spoonful for like 2 hours.
Wow.
It's the
Wow.
kind of stuff.
So can you tell us any of your plans? So when this global thing finishes, is is a tour, is that something that you guys would like to do? Is that something on the cards? In relation to the songs that you've released, is that something you'd like to do?
Yeah, I mean, we'd be super stoked to do it. We actually have a lot of friends all around the country who would like take us in, and I think for me, it's a matter of getting more solid songs together, aside from like
Okay.
just turning them into like tuning or turning them into like jam songs. But um, I'd be so stoked to just go on the road immediately after this is all over. It'd be incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Keep in touch. Obviously we're friends on social media, so I'd be keen to support you guys in any way as far as that's concerned. So songwriting. I'm glad again you've brought that up because this is something that I'd like to ask you guys. You know, and of course you can be as detailed or as you know jaded with sharing your experience as you want, because I know that some guys don't like talking about it. But how do you go about songwriting? Is it lyrics that comes first, or is it a riff? Is it something that you do independently and you go and give to the band, or is it something that you guys work out together?
Um, Basically, I just sit around until I can figure out something within the box that is new that I've never heard. So, I'll just be sitting in bed, like listening to a record or watching TV, and just noodling, and then like you hear the one or two patterns that like make sense, and you're like, okay, and then I'll make a riff. I'll work on it over the next couple days, and I've really got to say that like without the fellas, my music is sure you could consider it good, but like they're the spices, okay? So they add
Sure.
all the extra influence, and I think that's really how I write my music, also based around how they play, so that I know that when I make like big strikes or like I do anything loud, like I know that Jimmy can like do an excellent fill to fill it in, and I think from there we work, and then once the whole song is over, uh, we write lyrics over if we have to. But for the longest time beforehand, we were a completely instrumental band. But moving forward, you eventually you're gonna have to start writing some songs.
Yeah, yeah. Look, before we continue with the interview, we've got a couple of cats in the chat saying hi. We've got a good friend of the channel, Arvin, saying hello. Another good friend of the channel, Nelson Rodriguez, saying hello. And we have Mr. Rock saying hi. So thanks, guys, for joining us. We're very, very lucky to have Cesar here and share some of his experiences and his thoughts on music with us. Been a long time fan of his social media account for a while, so just happy to see that someone can understand where this music is coming from. So before we continue, Cesar, in regards to your vinyl collection, tell us a little bit about your gear, because we're a gear show too. I'm a Les Paul nut. I've got a Marshall Blues Breaker too. So tell me what you got there. Tell us.
So right here, let me just turn the camera. It's just a super lead high watt plexi. It's 100 watts. Everything's cranked, but the bass is all the way off. I run both these channels.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty simple for that. And then just a AWH high watt cabinet. And then this is mainly all I had. I had a Blues Breaker. I have a little shitty PV amp that I use, but it's just for practice. I don't really mind it. But yeah, so I used to have several guitars, but I really just found myself playing this one. I think this is as I believe, I don't know how to work this camera. I think it's a 2016. It was for the 100th year anniversary of Les Paul, and I was just getting into guitars, and I didn't really know what to look for, and I didn't really pay attention to the signature, and I went and just went and bought the first Les Paul I could see, and I really liked the finish. It's very glossy. But yeah, it's one of the 100 years, so it's got his actual signature on it. And the sticker on the back. It's one of the ones that has the robo tuners, and I know people hate these, but it's really weird. It has like an SG neck, so it's like very thin but very wide.
Wow.
And that's not something you usually find on Les Pauls, And I had like an Angus Young style with the Maestro Vibrola, like George Harrison's too, and
yeah.
Thing was incredible, but that thing had a very chunky neck, so I couldn't play it. I had a Firebird, and I just sold the Firebird so that our drummer could get a drum kit. Oh, and then
wow,
it was worth it. But
what a dude.
Because I wanted to get things moving, when you got a band, you really want to get things rolling, and like I was willing to make the sacrifice for him, because he was like 13 and he could already do John Bonham triplets, and I would be like, how did you learn how to play like that? And he's just like, I don't know. He's just like, I just grew up playing Beatles songs, and then I could just play this, and I was like, okay, well, you definitely shouldn't be playing that really crappy drum kit.
Wow.
But yeah, I've gone through the mill. I had like 6 or 7 guitars at one point, and I really just like found myself just playing my Les Paul. And when I first got it, I had the pick guard on it and everything, and this thing is so beat up. I've not been nice to it whatsoever. It's like there's chips everywhere. I made sure to give it some, I guess like a soul, what you would call it. But
Yeah.
I don't really use any other amps. I used to have, like I said, I had the Blues Breaker, but it's the Plexi. It's the 100 watt for me, or getting a 45 watt. But yeah, this is my gear. A beautiful 100 watt.
Oh, you can't go wrong with that. So Cesar, so what pickups are in that Les Paul? Is it just standard burst buckers?
Yeah, I think they're burst buckers, but the wiring in here is also made with like the pull-up pop.
Oh.
So it goes out of phase, and then you can cut straight through treble. But yeah, it's people don't like it, but I think it sounds fantastic, dude. It gives you that extra oomph. Like I guess you technically have like a high gain pedal in the guitar, but yeah, I mean, I like it. I love it.
Yeah, I've got the vintage Lemon Drop. I bought that about 4 years ago. That's the British inexpensive guitar that's based on Peter Green's Greenie, and it's got a wonderful out of phase tone. When I bought my traditional in 2019, I just kept it standard. I just wanted a traditional Cesar. I didn't want to have any push pots or anything like that. But I am seriously contemplating doing something with the pickups to get that out of phase tone, because I just love it. I just think, it just adds so much to the guitar, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. When I got this, I didn't know any better. Like, if I had known at the time, like, exactly what a traditional Les Paul was, I would have definitely, I every day I wish that I had a traditional Les Paul without the pots and everything, because I really like to be as organic as possible when it comes to, like, the sounds I'm emitting. And for the longest time, I wanted to just save up and buy a conversion Les Paul.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because those are, like, fantastic, and for some reason they're like a tenth of the price of a real Les Paul. So I was like, well, I should probably just save up for that. But I want what I'm intending to save up for right now is either a 335 or a 345.
I think a 335 would be fantastic. I just think that would just be something extra special for you, and considering the music that you play, and I think that will just add a little bit more bite to what you want to achieve. But look, I'm a little bit like you, and I'm going to be serious when I say this. If you're a fan of a music genre, and you're a player of some description, you want to get as close as you can to the gear, and it's been a 20-year journey for me to get my Blues Breaker and my Les Paul. I've had dozens of amps, Cesar, over the years, but I have to tell you though, I wouldn't have appreciated my Blues Breaker amp had you given that to me first. I wouldn't have appreciated it. I've gone through playing crappy amps, if you understand what I mean. So you get to a point where you can appreciate gear. So you've probably done that same thing too, of playing through, just average amps, and then when you go and plug into your Marshall, it's like, yeah, this is me. This is what I'm hearing.
You walk in. Luckily, the guitar shops around here, they're not the best. So we got Guitar Center, and the first time I went in there, plugged into everything, and the only things that sounded good to me were the orange, but it sounded a little too almost warm for me. And then I plugged into like a little shitty Marshall, and even the shitty Marshall sounded great to me. And then as I learned, and obviously like watched all my Guitar Heroes, and I was like, I need to try that amp.
Yeah.
And somehow, um, my friend Jimmy, his dad had called us to we were young kids, dude. We didn't know anything about amps, and he had called us. I had some money saved up to get a new amp, and he had called us, told us somebody was having an estate sale because their storage unit was they were basically like, I think the person must have passed away or something. And they're like, they have a marshal there, you know, and the guy only wants $400 for the whole thing. And we were like, the
Wow.
whole right? We're like, the whole thing, right? So we go, right? And next thing I know, I see a JTM 45 with just some regular 4x12 Marshall cabinet, but it's a JTM 45, and I'm like, something's got to be busted, right? Something's got to be busted. I plug into it. I brought like at the time I had a little Epiphone SG, and I just like wailed on it in this warehouse, and it was an incredible experience. And the guy must have not known what he had. They didn't actually know anything about the stuff. They were just there to like sell everything so they could clear the storage unit, and they wanted $400 for a JTM 45, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna fight it.
Wow. No.
And then I sold the JTM 45 to get the high watt or the 100 watt.
Wow. What a story. You hear these stories now and again. I had a friend who went to a garage sale, and it was this older lady, and she was selling some stuff that his son had, and he'd moved on to the UK. And one of the things that she was selling was a Fender. I forget the. Anyway, it was like a $3,000 amp, and she just wanted, like a couple $100 for it. And he said, "Oh."
I
I
recently acquired a 64 Gibson Firebird, a reverse one, so like with 3 pickups in it, and a bunch of other guitars from this older lady who just like connected with him, and she like gave him an insane deal, gave him like 6 guitars for like $2,000 or something, and they were all vintage. And it just baffled me, like, oh, like, my God, like, where do you guys people, where do you score these deals? Like, it's insane. Jimmy actually had, growing up, he had a 69 a brown he had a 69 basically like a brownie 69, and it was beat to hell, but like he like wanted something like a PlayStation, and he like let his dad sell it. And like now, like we're growing up, and we're like, because his dad is a major flea market head, collects like a bunch of stuff like that, and we're just
Yep.
like, dude, you had a real like Strat, like with the Richie Blackmore head and everything, like, and like you told it to get a PlayStation. Like it's so incredible that like these things were in our grasps, and we just like didn't know growing up, because the culture isn't appreciated as much up here. Like people love the blues, but I feel like it's a very saturated, generic blues. It's like it's not the same thing as we had back in the day. Like there are a few young cats who really do get it, but up here in San Francisco, we had Biscuit and Blues, and you had all the older heads that would come and they would play, and they played authentically, and it was just like incredible. And since I can't remember right now if they shut down, but I know they were like struggling, and there's not that big of an appreciation for blues up here. So it's a bummer. There's not, everybody's like more into like hardcore metal, or like indie, or like alternative, or like Tame Impala kind of style thing. So there's not very many people you can connect. There's this incredible guitar player named Chris Guthridge out of San Francisco, incredibly unknown, possibly like one of the best players I've ever seen. And I met him I listened to his music from a band that he was in 10 years ago, and I was just baffled. I was baffled by his guitar playing, and I went to go see the show, and I was this dumb little kid, and I just spent like 3 hours annoying this older guy about his music taste, and I just like, it's very rare to find find people up here who truly appreciate it to the depth that we do.
Yeah, well, look, I'm glad you said that. And again, this is one of the great things about social media, is that we can connect with people. I've got a friend in the UK, another guy in Australia. I've got you in San Francisco, and just imagine if we were together, hanging out, we could drink coffee all night and be talking about records and Clapton and what he did and, what it was like going to these gigs and, appreciating the fact, Peter Green, for example, what he did in a short time and, and the legacy, 50 years later, guys like you and your band are heavily influenced by this guy from North London, who was just a shy, kind of reserved guy, but understood the blues. And that's something that I think's fascinating because the blues started in America, clearly, with the Delta Blues and the Black Guys. And then it jumped over to the UK there, and then you had these British cats, Keith Richards just being blown over by the power of and the authenticity of this music. And then again in the late 60s, Cesar, taking it back to America and standing there saying to Americans, well, don't listen to us. Go and listen to Muddy Waters, Go and listen to these guys, Howling Wolf, yeah, but in a weird kind of way, we're still sort of paying tribute to those British guys because what they did was unique too.
Yeah, that's the thing that I mean with like Clapton. Like, you don't hear anybody that was playing the runs that he was playing aside from Peter Green in 67, 68, and 66. Like, you had like the Stones and like that style of blues, but these guys came along and cranked their amp all the way up and just totally changed the way things were played. And I still always, you hear like Clapton, like love Big Bill Brunzi and all these blues heads, but you really got to wonder where he came up with, I don't want to say those time signatures, but at the pace that he played those runs, like, did he just sit there and, angry, like getting his feelings out, just like try to like annihilate the neck? Because, for example, like, I'm sure you've listened to Steppin' Out on Live Cream 2, and you just hear Clapton like play through that record like a motherfucker, and you just like, people are talking about Hendrix and all these people, and obviously they are themselves gods, but Clapton was very unique. Everybody thinks of Clapton as his grandpa, the guy with glasses and, Tears in Heaven, but like nobody really understands his period before Derek and the Dominoes. You have people that like listen to. Go ahead.
I think you're right, and sorry for butting in. I think you're 100% right. Eddie Van Halen, who rest in peace, just passed away. He said it many times. He was blown away by Clapton. He was a Clapton disciple, Cesar. In fact, that same song that you're just talking about was a song that turned him on. Van Halen played that song. Eddie Van Halen knew that song note by note. That whole song. So yeah, I don't think the history has been written yet about Eric Clapton and that 4-year period. Yes, yeah, Derek and the Dominoes is great, and we're going to be doing a 50th anniversary show on this channel later this month. But I don't think we can fully appreciate that history, and the fact that you've made a connection is awesome and worth celebrating.
I mean, yeah, I appreciate it, but that really is my goal, to like spread awareness. I'm sure some people get annoyed by the fact that like I spread Clapton all the time, but like just the way he played during that period really changed me. Like, it was like somebody was speaking to me. It wasn't just a guitar sound. People really take guitar for granted. They go out and they just hear a guy playing bar chords, or you hear somebody soloing, and it's a real problem. Like, musicianship isn't a thing unless you're an Instagram influencer, and there have been so many times where I've been in San Francisco, and there are these bands that like are supposedly like big in San Francisco, and you go out and you talk to them, and I'll be like, dude, I loved your phrasing, and they'll be like, phrasing? They'll be like, I don't phrase, and I'll be like, what? I'll say things like, what do you mean you don't phrase? Like, that's nearly impossible. So they just it's kind of tough up here, but I try my best to like try and spread awareness of you know the technique so that people can better learn how to admit their feelings through their music. Because
Wow.
you can be angry and play bar chords all day, but when you can play like that style, you can speak so much more. Like just like how Peter can play three notes, and it could mean so much more than a person's entire um an entire album or an entire solo. And I want to talk about these two records right here. So a couple years ago, John McVie found some tapes that he had recorded with, or somebody had recorded these gigs with Peter Green on guitar with John Mayall, and
Yep.
these two records I think are possibly the best guitar playing I've ever heard. Like
Yes.
the way Peter just plays through those, and every time after every solo, you can hear the crowd go insane. Everybody was like, "There's no way this cat's going to be able to match Clapton," and he just did it in this unique, incredible way. Um, it's just incredible, just the way they speak, and then they really are just like speaking. And you have Mick Taylor, who's just like a young kid. Like that whole band was incredibly young at the time, but it's also tied to the fact that like you have all these incredible connections in those bands that influence you into these whole other levels. Like John Mayall's Blues Breakers alone had Ansley Dunbar in it, and like Ansley Dunbar did the Radiation, he did the early Jeff Beck group, um, and that leads to like other things, and it's just incredible. And that's not something you find out a lot with a lot of modern blues cats. A lot of people are very self-reserved and about their own project, and that's another thing. You don't see musicians supporting other musicians unless they're your friends, and that's another problem that I don't like, because how is anybody supposed to get anywhere? How are the people who put their whole heart into it and try to create something because money is involved or promotion is involved? Like, you don't do it for that sake. You do it so that people can experience the music. Like, I guess you could say you could separate the art from the artist, but at the same time that's not true. But that's just like a sad problem. You don't have many musicians like that support you. Like whenever I get the opportunity, I try to put people that like you could say touch me. So I try to spread awareness around them. Like an incredible guitar player named Andrew White out of Nashville, somewhere around Nashville. He's like one of the most authentic players I've ever heard, and he's just an incredible guy too. And I'm sure you know of Connor from the UK. His
Yep.
last name's pronounced Selby or Shelby, one of the
Yep.
two. But another incredible, and like I just try to like spread awareness about other people so that we can spread awareness and possibly start another wave. Because for a long time we were
Yeah.
having this whole regeneration of acid tests in San Francisco, and huge crowds would come, and it would be like it would feel real. But what you didn't have was the authentic music. You didn't have the Dead playing for 45 minutes straight, or Cream tearing through the whole crowd. You didn't have any of that. So like it's really about like setting those kind of bills, because those bands back in the day, they didn't go and book gigs. They were working 5 days a week or 7 days a week sometimes, and they just played whatever they could do, and that's just not something that's possible nowadays. So a lot of people also like miss playing on stage, and like just because you don't totally immerse yourself in the person's music, but it could be a positive thing for the culture, you shouldn't let your ego get in the way of helping other people get out there, just like you contacting me.
Well. Unfortunately, I think it's going to get worse. Without getting too political, I think the situation of live music, Caesar, and having big crowds is something certainly that they don't. Yeah, that's going to be difficult. But look, I fully agree with you. I think you've hit the nail on the head. In the '60s and the '70s, certainly in the UK, for example, there was this culture of going out watching live bands. And to a degree, there were a lot of those venues in the United States of America. You could make a good living being a touring band. There's been a lot of British bands out there who have only put out a couple of records that just toured constantly and made a good living. Tough life, though. It's a tough life living on the road.
Yeah.
But I just want to echo something that I think you're trying to say. I think the music that we love, it's a way of life. It's a way of, and I identified that, your Instagram name Bluesbreaker for a starter, just instantly. I knew exactly what that is. I had the same thing on a other social media account too, Bluesbreaker. So I knew exactly, what that meant when I came across your Instagram channel, and then I just sort of flipped out and thought, wow, what's going on, So yeah, it's a way of life, certainly. I just love, like what you're just saying. It's that ability to create. I think that positivity that we have without getting too metaphysical with the music that we like. So, did you take lessons, or are you self-taught? Are you a self-taught guitarist?
Totally self-taught. I
Wow.
uh, just like, I for some reason I could play one lick immediately, and I just like base everything around that lick, and then I just found like I would try and learn Mick Taylor solo from "Oh Pretty Woman" on a crusade, and it's like slowly how I learned how to play. And um, luckily we have phones, so we don't have to sit there and spin the record again and again. And I would just like keep repeating licks until I could hear or sound out something that sounded similar. And that's how it happened. I'm still not the best with like music theory, but I can figure out pretty quickly what's going on. But yeah, I'm totally self-taught. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not heavily into music theory either. And I like it when I hear other guitar players say that too. You need a little bit, of course, to navigate yourself around the fretboard. But I was jamming with a guy a couple of Saturdays ago, and he was saying, "Do you know the circle of fifths?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I've read that at the beginning of paragraphs in various books and guitar magazines, but I wouldn't have a clue what it is." And you know what? I'm happy I don't.
None of them, nobody did. Every just if you think about it, Buddy Guy, like he didn't know what key he wasn't playing in. He just played on the thing till he could like figure it out and hear what he heard. You don't really get that involved into that style until you start picking up in like the late '70s, and you get people like Richie Blackmore. But yeah, music theory, I respect it. I totally respect it, but it's just not something that I was able to like be. How do I say it? I wasn't provided the opportunity to get into it that way. It was just do it the way I can, or get bust.
Yeah, and look, I don't respect anybody who knows all that stuff too, because some people pick it up really quickly and have been around it, and all credit to them. I did a show a couple of weeks ago, Cesar, and it's interesting because one of my friends during the show said that the reason why music theory became really important all of a sudden for guitar players in the '70s was because of the advent of progressive rock, prog rock, when about time signatures and all this, so all of a sudden, music theory was something that you had to know. And I thought that made kind of good sense. But look, at the end of the day, I know some pentatonic scale. I know the pentatonic scale pattern. I know where to find some notes. And, if you're playing in the key of E, I
Yeah,
can jam with you.
You just got to be able to jam, man. That's really it. You know, if you can jam with anybody, then you're good.
Well, yeah. You know, I laughed when I watched the ZZ Top documentary that came out last year, and Frank Beard is talking about the first time that they got together. They jammed in B for 3 hours. That's all they did. They just did a jam in the key of B for 3 hours, and I'm going, wow, you know. And you know, Clapton said the same thing too when Ginger and Jack Bruce got together. They just jammed for 2 hours. You know, it was just phenomenal. But I want to get back to something that you said earlier. You said something really cool about Clapton being this force of nature when he was in Cream, and he was doing all this cool stuff. So obviously you're in a band, and it's your bandmates and the relationship you have with your bandmates that propels you as a musician. So clearly Clapton playing with Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce made a big difference on him quickly, didn't it?
Definitely. You know, um, it's a shame that like you hear all this misinformation about how Clapton was incredibly afraid of Hendrix, you know, and all these things. But like, really, like Eric and Cream was incredibly insane. Like, you hear these stories about, you know, Santana says in Beware Mr. Baker how he just came and he just tore everybody's face off. Like, he showed all the San Francisco bands how you play guitar. Like they, you know, all the San Francisco bands were looking at Mike Bloomfield to see his reaction. And there's several articles where Mike Bloomfield talks about how Eric was his favorite guitar player of the period, because Eric, like his, it's just like that time signature in which they played and nobody was playing at the time. And, you know, Ginger and Jack being jazz musicians, just being some of the most incredible musicians to ever exist. They just like pushed the hell out of this kid from the middle of like just like the middle of nowhere, basically. And they just propelled him. Exactly. They just propelled him. They launched him out, and he just cracked this like rift in the sky and like became, you know, Eric Clapton is God. Because you can hear like. Go ahead.
Sorry for interrupting. I was going to ask you a question. But you were finishing your sentence. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but like they propelled him. You know, there's a few bands who can do that well enough the way he did. You know, you have stuff like 10 Years After, but Eric's bends, like you didn't hear anybody that was bending like him. You don't hear anybody that was. He like totally played authentic runs and didn't utilize like the Dorian scale or anything like that, like a lot of the guitar players do when they speed up. You know, he just like had perfect time. They really did have perfect time, like Ginger always said. And I think Eric just like, I think he must have blown a fuse, like just becoming next level that fast, and I must have burned him out, and that's why he decided to like do Blind Faith. But yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned that thing about time, because on a I can't remember the documentary. It's one of a few that are out there on Cream, but they're interviewing Ginger Baker, and they're asking Ginger Baker, why is Eric so good? And he makes it very clear. He says because he's got timing. His timing is impeccable. And you know, for being a jazz musician and a drummer, see, I don't know what he means. I've got a bit of an idea when you're playing with other guys. You know, timing is, you know, everything. You know, you got to play your thing, but you got to be listening, Cesar, to what's going on around you, so it sounds reasonably good. So that's something obviously that you guys work in your band, setting the time. Now, in various bands, you've got the drummer who sets the time, and then in other bands like the Rolling Stones, the beat and the pace is set by, the timing is set by Keith Richards. So how's that established in your band? Is it through you, or is it through the drummer in a traditional way?
Yeah, it probably has to be James. Sorry for my dog. It's Lee James. He
Beautiful.
definitely controls it, but Jack Bruce. Jack Bruce. Nick Verity, our bass player, he's also incredible when it comes um to like keeping time. It's just something that like I immediately had the privilege to know about when I started playing. Like I knew that like no matter how shitty as long as I could keep time, I would sound reasonable. And yeah, it's something very unique. Like you can double your time from what the band is playing and still stay and sound incredible, but you're still playing a slow song, but it can sound like Crossroads. Like Crossroads is a basic, 1 2 1 2, and Eric just like doubles the time with his solo, and it just sounds like the most insane fast song. And it's just incredible. It's an incredible thing that they do.
Oh yeah, I still can't get over it when you listen to the Robert Johnson original version, and then listen to what they did with that. It's just like, where did that come from? And this is one of the reasons why the British electric blues guys deserve a bit of respect in their own right, because there was just something. Yeah, you just listen to that, and it's just it's a phenomenal piece of guitaring, musicianship, full stop.
And you really owe it to like the venues back in the day. Like they really didn't put a strain on musicians' work the way they do now, because now you have the lights, you have the fireworks, the stage show. Back in the day, it was just like all about the music the band would set up, and you have people like Bill Graham who gave these bands the opportunity to play one song for 40 minutes and explore this whole new realm of music. And you had places like the Marquee too, and all those kinds of places that like the UFO Club, and letting Pink Floyd play like all night, and the Soft Machine. And if it wasn't for that, I don't think we would have the vocabulary that we have now.
Yeah. So we got another friend that's jumped in the chat saying hi. Warren H. From Australia is saying hi. So he's another friend of the channel. All British blues nuts. Everyone that's in the chat just loves that type of music, and the fact that you're a young guy from San Francisco playing it, and being inspired by it is inspirational for us too, because we try not to be too critical about a lot of modern music, and we sort of scratch our heads sometimes and think, what do people listen to? And then when I'm at work and some guy comes in and I ask him, we're talking music, and he tells me that he loves the Rolling Stones, Get Your Ya-Ya's Out, and he's 23 years old, I'm going, my gosh, you can't, mate, you're doing pretty well. Any
But
any gear wish list items besides your 335? Is there anything that you'd like to have besides that?
oh man, I want a 68 silver faced what is it called? It's been such a long time since I even thought about it, because it's just so long. It's a deluxe. No, it's not a deluxe reverb. What is it? God damn, what is it called again? A dual
Bandmaster?
Showman reverb.
Oh,
On the silver, the ones that Peter Green used right after he stopped using the orange amps.
yeah.
They're fairly cheap. They're not that expensive. One of those would be
Really?
incredible. They're huge amps. They're nearly as tall as a half stack, with the proper cabinet. And then
Wow.
I'd love a original Matt amp, but I don't have any plans on that. I obviously want to get another Blues Breaker, a JTM 45. But I try to not have too much stuff, because I don't know, I'm kind of weird about like having a lot of things. I'm not like a minimalist or anything, but I think it's maybe like just being paranoid out of having so much expensive equipment and like where I live. and I'm
Yeah.
just like not on. But yeah, I'd love to have tons of equipment if I could. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
actually right now.
Yeah. So
Right
sorry.
now, I'm in the process of. No worries, no worries. I'm in the process of trying to like basically create my little at-home studio. So I recently traded for this reel-to-reel machine up here,
Oh
running
wow.
like a mixing board, and our buddy Cody, who plays in this band called Slow Season, who is one of the most phenomenal drummers I've ever met, on an incredible do-it-yourself engineer. He actually plays with Mr. Jimmy Page. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's like a tribute guy.
Yeah, yeah.
He's gonna help set it up, and that way I can like fool around more with the music. Because right now I'm working on this side project called Orion's Epitaph, and it's more progressive rock, and it's just really tough to find people who get the sound and understand it. You know, most of the time I get very disappointed because I'll record something on my phone through my phone microphone, and I'll go to this guy who's like, "Yeah, I recorded a track for Nirvana," and I'll hear it back, and I'll be like, "This sounds disgusting. Like, how is my phone recording better than you?" Like, and it's just that's just a shame that I want to get working on so I can figure out my own sound. So, you know, you get a lot of people who put the microphone right up to the fucking speaker, and it just blows their speakers out, and like they don't understand that kind of stuff because you don't have a lot of people that work with this style of thing. You'd be surprised how often people are like, how like where do I put power source for your pedal board? And I'm like, I don't have one. Like, you
Wow.
know, people aren't used to it. Like they love it, but they aren't used to it. Or um, you get told to like use an attenuator or stuff like that. So I really want to like create my own environment, kind of like Hendrix had his Electric Lady Studios. You know, I want to really create my own environment so that I can work. And right now, I really want to do more of a Sergeant Pepper type deal, like not in the sense that like I want to do an album to that vast vocabulary, but that I want to be in the studio, you know, messing around, tinkering with things, so that I can figure out, because I can play a blues number all day long. Like we can jam for 2 hours straight, and you can do that, you can do that, but I feel like I can bring so much more to the table if I had the engineering skills that a lot of musicians do have. You know, like Hendrix. Like you just listen to a Hendrix song and you're like, holy crap! Or even a track reversed, like on those early Deep Purple albums, the very first ones with Rod Evans on vocals. Um, it's just incredible.
Well,
But
well,
yeah,
look. I think that's fascinating, and you need to keep us in touch with what you do there, because I think you've answered the question for your project. You know, you need to get that space and that recording situation sorted so you can get whatever is in you out, because you know you're correct. You're limited to what you can do when you're playing with other guys, but you know, with technology that's available, especially you know the digital stuff, whether you're going to go down that road or keep it analog, I don't know, but I suppose you're going to have to use a lot of, you know, a bit of digital equipment. But what you can do, and I've heard a lot of good stuff, you know, that guys have recorded in their home studio. In fact, a guy that hosts the Sunday show with me, Brad Cook from Melbourne, he's just released a couple of months ago an EP, Cesar, and he recorded it himself at home. It's fantastic.
yeah. I have a recently. They really recently did that. They all over the world. Some of them live in Brazil. Some of them live in Spain and Italy, and they just like released an incredible single, all over just a laptop. I'm guessing. So yeah,
So 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 well, keep us in touch. You know, on with your developments on how that goes, because you know, I think what you have to do, from what other guys are telling me, is you've got to be releasing material, don't you? On social media, to content is king, so they say. So you got to have some, something's out there to generate that forward or perpetual motion that Brad likes to use when it comes to your music. Otherwise, it just doesn't get out. No one's going to hear it unless it's something that you just want to do for a hobby.
Yeah, it's exactly. That's another thing is like, music doesn't get out there. So many, like recently, I was up in my friend's. He has a house on a farm, like a farm that you would think like a Neil Young style farm, but like just a little farm in a farmer's town. And he just showed me these bands that like are modern day bands. Like, was I genuinely feel that the trick to getting people to love what you do is to find something new to play within the box, not think outside the box, because then you just create another genre of music. And when I hear bands that play new phrases and new things within the box, or just like something that I never heard, but like are authentic, it's incredible. And some of these people never ever see the light of day. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Like,
Yeah.
We gotta lift each other up, or there's never going to be an opportunity for any single one of us.
Oh, well, look, I think you've hit the nail on the head, and that's one of the reasons why, my co-host and I, Simon, in the UK, do this channel. We're selfish. We only do it for ourselves first and foremost. I'm here. I'm here talking to you because I'm fascinated in your story and where you've come from, and hopefully where you're going, and to maintain that friendship. And if anyone else can be inspired, Cesar, by the music that you love and what you want to achieve, I think we're doing the job. And I'll certainly put links to your social media accounts, because I know some people have bought Brad's music when he's been on our show. So we're keen to do anything that we can to to spread the gospel. Jeepers, the British guys that we love, they did it. Brian Jones. It was almost a religious experience for Brian Jones, wasn't it?
Exactly. I don't know if you've ever heard of he works for the BBC. I can't exactly remember his name right now. He was a legendary BBC host, but or DJ, and he's responsible for getting people like Mark Bolan or David Bowie out there. If it wasn't for those people, we really got to generate a network that like lifts each other, or like the music's never going to survive.
Yeah. So do you write regularly? Is that something that you do? Do you put yourself in a situation where you say, right, okay, I'm going to write something now, or is it just something that you do spontaneously?
I think it's just something that I do. I'm always searching for new notes, and whenever I can tell the difference between a phrase that can sound like a rip and solo or a phrase that can sound like a riff that's going to be incredible, that's how I really do it. I don't necessarily try to write lyrics anytime soon. Most of the time, I like to have this complete before I start to think about what I'm going to write over it. But yeah, it's really just how I do it. Simple as that.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. That's fantastic. Look, is there anything that you'd like to say? I've noticed we've been on air for an hour, and I'd rather you come back and do part two. You're more than welcome. If you want to come back and spend some time with us, Cesar, and tell us what you've been up to, I'd be grateful if you'd say yes.
I would love to. I'd love to come back.
Yeah. Okay. So how about in another 4 or 5 weeks? We're friends on social media, so I'd like to get maybe one of my co-hosts on as well, so that we can have three of us hanging out. But is there anything that you'd like to give us before you go, as far as some homework? Is there anything that you think that we should be listening to that you've come across? Is there anything that you think is mandatory listening for some British nuts, British blues nuts? I'd be keen for you to share that with us.
Yeah. So listen to 103.3 Time Travel Radio. I share it all the time. Incredible station, incredible people, music for the people, by the people. But if I'm going to spread awareness about bands, I got a whole list of you. I'll just name a couple off the top. These are incredible bands who just like time and again baffle me. Definitely deserve to be heard by more people. There's several. There's Death Chant. There's Crypt Trip. There's White Dog. There's Snit. Muff. There's a lot of bands out of San Francisco. There's Bolero. A Magic Blues Band is another phenomenal one. Shush Hair, Sacramani, a lot of the if you can look up San Diego bands, and you'll find some of the most incredible musicians. There's got to be something in the water, San Diego. There's Earthless. There is
Wow.
There's Sacramani, Earthless, Monarch, Birth, Pazzo,
Wow.
Chris Guthridge. If the band called, you should look up this band called Ride the Blinds. They released 2 albums, and it's this guitar player from San Francisco named Chris Guthridge. And it's early 2000s stuff, but it's just some of the most incredible stuff I've ever heard. Like genuine, authentic. It's like if you mix the Stones and Zeppelin and the Who together, like, it's incredible. And he's currently working on an album I know of, but there's a lot. There's so many bands, and if I ever could have the opportunity to name a huge list off, I would.
Okay.
But yeah, that's all I can think of right now.
What I'll do then, Cesar, if that's okay, and anybody who's watching a replay, I'll include in the description a link to Cesar's Instagram account for his channel, and also his band's channel, and I'll also include a link to Cesar's songs on Bandcamp, and I'll just share a little bit of that here. Oh man, that's so good. Oh wow, I love that. Now, Warren, Nelson, Arvin, when I put the link in, you guys go, and it's a donation to Bandcamp. So go on there. If you guys aren't a member of Bandcamp, log in, and you can donate as little or as much as you guys want, and support Cesar and his band. And obviously, you guys, holy shit, it's nice, says Arvin. Yeah. It's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. I'll
appreciate it.
Yeah.
More
Yeah.
to come.
Yeah. More to wow. But look, we'll keep in touch. And you jump back on and spend another hour with us in a hour in a couple of weeks, and just keep us in touch with what's going on. And I'll have another co-host here, and hopefully, we can just share a couple of thoughts. But appreciate your time, appreciate you hanging out with us, and we'll keep in touch. And if you guys think that anything that Cesar and I have said has been interesting, please subscribe to our channel. We'd appreciate it. I'll include your YouTube Sorry, I'll start again. I'll include your YouTube channel too, Cesar, in the description as
Thank
well,
you.
so people can subscribe to Cesar's channel. You need to see his band in full flight. It's a visual. Besides being a listening experience, you watch these cats and you think you've gone back in time, and I mean that sincerely in a nice way. But nothing wrong with that, is there? Awesome. Okay. All right.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem. So I'm going to
Let me
give
just,
you.
can I just say,
Yep.
sorry, you're breaking up.
Okay. No, you've got the last word, Cesar.
Okay. I hope everybody on this finds some peace in these times, and wish the absolute best for everybody. And I want to thank you for having me on the show, Andrew, and I'm excited to come back, and hopefully next time I can have all the boys. And thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak and put out my story and my opinion.
Yeah. If you can get your other bandmates together, that would be good. And we can have a hangout. It doesn't have to be long. An hour's enough. Because I realise everyone's got busy lives, and no, we appreciate that. And I promise everyone I'll put the links in. Come back later on and check out Cesar's Bandcamp. All right. Thank you very much. Great show. Thank you.